So, welcome to the Showgirl Tip of the Day podcast. I'm Michelle Bruckner, and I'm here with the ever fabulous Jason Wise. Hey, Jason.
Michelle, I'm so happy to be spending my Friday night with you.
Oh, thanks for coming on. So,
Of course.
Jason is a spectacular triple threat who has jumped the table and is now a director choreographer. And I want to talk with you about your journey towards that decision, what led you to realize that that was your path. And I just know that the listeners are going to be very excited to hear about your journey and your dreams. I first met Jason several years ago, and you're one of those people who have grown and expanded your life in leaps and bounds. So where are you originally from?
That was all so nice. Thank you so much. That made my day. And I have equally fabulous memories from when I first met you too. I'm from upstate New York originally, so very close to the city. If you're thinking globally, but it felt like I couldn't have been more far away.
Did you have dreams of coming to Broadway?
Absolutely. It was I don't remember not wanting that. So that's how early that must have started.
And your mom has a dance studio, right?
Yes, and that's kind of, that's really where everything started, especially the transition from performer to choreographer. I grew up in my mom's dance studio. So along with the classes, I also was exposed to the business stuff, the other side of the footlight stuff. And I fell in love with dance more than I expected and started asking my mom if I could choreograph stuff in the studio. And she said yes. And I found that I was really enjoying it. And then the same in high school. I wasn't just in the high school musicals. Towards the end of my time there, I started asking the director if she would let me choreograph them.
Wow.
So I really had, I was dancing, but also I was choreographing, and I was finding myself just having a great time. But then, so with that, it wasn't an idea that was born after my performing career. It was before my performing career.
But I didn't know that. That's incredible. That's to be so young and to have that desire.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So okay, go ahead.
Oh, well, no, but then that's, around the time when I met you. Of course, when I moved to New York, I wanted to dance and I wanted to work as a dancer. But so that's kind of how, when I showed up, I thought you're going to go to school and then, you're going to start your performing career. But being a choreographer was always circling around in the back of my head. So I went to school and I'll talk about AMDA a little bit later, but I went to AMDA and then I went off on the road with Cats, the musical.
I remember
Cats.
that.
And I stayed there. I was there for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Which is, that's so long. That is so much Cats. But I was there for 3 years, and even out there on the road, I would grab the dancers and, ask if I could put stuff on them on the road, just for, if anything, for something to do.
Yeah.
And then I just started getting curious. I wonder if some of my choreographer friends that I know would be willing to talk to me kind of about how they made the transition, because I also was aware that a lot of them, Jerry Mitchell and Rob Ashford, and they all started as chorus boys, which is what I was doing. That's if the listeners don't know, that's a very traditional path for choreographers to start in the chorus, and then do the dance captain, the assistant dance captain, so on and so forth.
I love that you just explained that, because a lot of people listen to the podcast who are not in show business. And
that's great.
Yeah, I like just explaining what everything is and all the jobs that you could have, because a lot of people don't know that there's not just one job performer.
Exactly. It's multifaceted. So I thought, I wonder if some of them would talk to me and just kind of give me some insight on how they jumped from being in the chorus where I am now to being a choreographer, which is where I want to go. And I got some great feedback and great insight from great people, one of which was Thommie Tune, who is so inspiring. Thommie Tune is a prolific director, choreographer, very much so Broadway based. I'm not sure he really did too much in film and television, but for the listeners who don't know much about theater, Thommie Tune would be, Michelle, wouldn't you say like the Martin Scorsese of the theater?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's got so many credits and they span decades.
Yes.
And
And
performer.
yeah, director, choreographer, he had done it all. And he gave me, the most inspiring advice, which is just start doing it. He said, in any way, shape, or form, just start putting things up however you can and just start making it known that you're a choreographer. Tell
I
everyone.
love it. I love it.
So I did. I spent the whole summer, putting as many choreographer eggs in as many choreographer baskets as I could. But I was still auditioning as a dancer, and I booked one of those auditions I had gone on, and it was for Beauty and the Beast on the road, which was great. That meant health insurance.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I leave New York with Beauty and the Beast, and about 3 weeks into it, I start getting bites from all of those feelers I had put out.
Oh wow.
And one of them wanted a meeting, that was what I was that was the one thing I wanted, a meeting as a choreographer. So
Wow.
I had to ask myself, are you really happy doing what you're doing? Or do you want to go down this other path? And especially at that time, just for a meeting, like that wasn't even for no one was offering me a job. It was just a chance to get a job. But that night I walked off stage. If you know Beauty and the Beast, I was also a tumbler as a dancer, so I was the carpet in the Be Our Guest number, which basically meant I was put into a giant bag. And I remember I walked off stage and I unzipped the carpet and I put it I gave it to the dresser and she put it away, and I thought, I'm going to go to New York and be a choreographer now.
That's great.
So I came back, and the meeting happened to be for a show called Bayside, which was a parody of the television show Saved by the Bell. And for whatever reason, the show took off and ran and ran and ran and ran in New York. And that did great things for me as a choreographer. And that's kind of when I started getting more opportunities to do more, keep along that path. But I had to make the responsible decision to stop dancing, because I didn't want to end up in that Beauty and the Beast situation again.
But you know what I love about this story is that when you made that decision, the doors started to open for the path that you really wanted to be on.
And isn't that funny, Michelle? Maybe it's part of the magic of theater, but I have yet to take a risk where a safety net doesn't eventually appear.
Yeah.
But you have to take the risk.
Yeah. And, when I was growing up, there were a lot of people in my hometown who they enjoyed watching me on stage, but there was always it's nice to do, but it's not really a career. One friend's mom said to me, I could never have a career where I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming from. But for me, I believe what you just said is that the safety net will appear. If none of us are in this industry, then who are you going to go see when you go to see a show? Like, somebody has to be the performer and the choreographer.
Exactly. It's so, but I'm not, I don't say that as if it's easy to do. I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying that it's easy to do, because it's so difficult to take those risks sometimes. Emotionally difficult and sometimes financially difficult, but you have to. It always pays off.
I agree. And, you never want to live your life thinking, well, I should have gone for it and I was too afraid.
No, exactly. And you know what? Here we are during this. I hate bringing up the pandemic, but there's no avoiding it. And I think I'm so glad, it will all come back. But, sometimes I'm like, what if that was it? What if it's over forever? And I think I'm so glad that you don't have to sit there and think, what if?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Life can throw any kind of a curveball at you. And if, God forbid, something happened tonight to me, I know that I gave everything my best shot. Like I
Exactly.
threw myself into everything and led with my heart. And you have too. And it's a wonderful thing. I love running into you on the streets of New York because first of all, you look fabulous, but
Oh,
you have a
thank
look.
you.
You have a look now. You wear this like Henley, the black Henley and the jeans. And I'm like,
Yes.
geez, he's going for it. He is the director choreographer of
Oh,
the
that
next
makes me so
generation.
happy. That makes me so happy. No
Yeah.
one
Oh,
ever
I
looks better than you do, though.
stop
And
it.
it's a known fact.
I spot you a mile away though. When we're on the streets of New York, I can spot you from a mile away because you
I
got that
hope that's a
star
good
quality.
thing.
No, it's good. It's
That's
totally good.
great.
So you mentioned Tommy Tune. You have
Yes.
been working with some great people. Is there anybody else in the industry that you just adore and can't wait to work with? I have been interviewing a ton of people for this podcast, and I've just
Yeah.
been asking them, like, what do you want? We've been speaking things into existence. So, where would you love to see yourself if everything was up and running? What do you want for yourself?
You know, I just want to do something that brings people joy. And I know how cliche that sounds. But I think as artists, there are times where we can be self-indulgent with our projects. They can be passion projects.
Mm-hmm.
And they might not be for anyone else, but for ourselves to have to find a way to express ourselves. They become our creative outlet. And, I think any artist will admit there are times we don't really care what people think of it. We needed to do it for us. But I feel like this is going that we need, as show people, we need a lot of help right now. And we need a
Yeah.
lot of support. And it's hard to find glimpses of people showing us support. But with that, it goes back to what we were, in coming out of the Great Depression. People are going to need to escape. And that is, showing up for duty, and that's us putting on our army jackets. That's what we do. We
Yeah.
provide people with an escape from their lives. And I just hope that whatever it is I'm working on is something that is appealing in the way where it makes people forget about everything for a second and just enjoy. And my personal favorite style is the traditional big musical comedy, the Music Man or Mame or Gypsy or Hello Dolly. But I think that, I hope that there's some of that stuff when we come back. We know we'll have the Music Man,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like we need to uplift and smile and be there for people, because I think they'll be hungry to come back, experience all of those things again. And I think that they will. There's the fear that the tourists, when will the tourists come back?
Oh,
And
everyone I know is just itching to get back to New York.
yes,
And
yes, exactly.
I'm sure you know a lot of friends who have moved out temporarily. I just send them love and strength. Sometimes you have to go and stay with your folks or
Yes.
stay with friends and just, make some money and put some money away. I get it. Like, I get
Oh
it.
yes. Oh yes. If you need to go away. It's okay. Like, make sure that you are setting yourself up to be able to return. But there's no stress right now. The most important thing for everybody right now is just to be taking care of themselves.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's no, nothing else matters right now than everyone's personal well-being and happiness and safety. So if you're
And
safe, it has
mhm.
been crazy with the I there right now. See, I actually left the city for 6 months when everything started in March,
Oh,
and it was just the blunt of it. It just seemed. Luckily, very gratefully, I had a place that I could go and sit it out, and I did. But then coming back to New York, what it's been has been trying to figure out who's here and who's not, because everything kind of got thrown in a blender, and people really have dispersed in all different directions, and people have different game plans for when they're returning. And it's such a puzzle right now, just figuring out who's here and
Yeah.
who's not here.
But shout out to folks like there's that wonderful Australian triple threat, Sarah Bowden. She's in, I
Oh
believe,
my gosh,
Idaho right
I
now.
love her.
Oh, she's so talented. But
I love her.
she's doing things that are like she's teaching yoga and
I
I
think
think she's
doing
getting
some
her real
interior design stuff or something.
yes.
Yeah.
But you know what? She can come back in a heartbeat and start to book shows because she's so great. But you know what? I applaud her for diving into other things in the meantime and living
Me
in a different
too.
place.
Me too. And in the 6 months that I was out of the city, I learned that I enjoy doing things I never would have known I enjoyed. Like I stained a deck. Like I
I
power
love it.
washed a deck and stained a deck. And I found that I had not a clue that that would bring me such enjoyment. And that's obviously not starting my own business or anything, but that has been, I built a birdhouse. You know what I mean? I
Awesome.
mean, all of these things, I built a garden bed for my folks. It's all of these things that I didn't, that, never ever would have been done and have been discovered this year. And, I'm seeing businesses extend from that, and it's admirable and it's inspirational, and that's life.
It is. One of the things I love about you is that you love the history of New York so much. Will you tell the listeners the story of the mirror ball that you found in the parking garage? And it was from the Bette
Yes.
Midler. Tell that story because it's really a great story.
Yes, I love this story. And I'm not sure if you know the amazing happy ending. That's a recent
No.
update to this. But
Oh, I
uh
don't.
so one of the great things about New York is everything is still right where it's always been. If you're reading about a place that used to exist, let's say like Studio 54, even if it's not currently, if there's a restaurant inside now or something like that, the building is still there. Like the footprints and the skeletons of everything still exist. So one of my favorite things to do when I'm reading about an iconic place that was long gone before I was able to move to New York and experience it myself is I still like to go there and see if there's anything, any remnants or anything left over that might be reminiscent of what it was. And one of those places was the Continental Baths, which was a gay bathhouse. I think, 70s, I think late 60s, early 70s. It was on the Upper West Side, and there was all of these different pools and saunas and different places to hang out, and a little cabaret stage. A young Bette Midler would sing there, accompanied by young Barry Manilow before they were famous. Kind of famous with, New York City people, but not like the global mega icons that they are today.
Right.
And I was, doing some research, and it was on the bottom floor of the Ansonia, which I think houses some of the AMDA campus, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Houses some of the AMDA campus, and that the location is now a parking garage. So I saw that when I was in the neighborhood, I could go down into the parking garage. And I remember just thinking, how cool, even though it looks nothing like it, I'm in the same space that Barry Manilow and Bette Midler got their start in. And I start looking around, and sure enough, on the ground, the pavement has started wearing, and you can see some of the old pool tiles. So
Oh my
when
goodness.
when they converted it from the baths into a parking garage, instead of tearing it up, they must have just laid the cement over it. And I started looking around some more, peeking through some closets, and I noticed a circle covered in dust hanging up in the corner. And I go up to it and I swipe my finger across it, and it's a mirrored disco ball. And I think there is no way. There is no way. And sure enough, I went to see how it was attached, and it was attached with this hard stainless steel metal wire. And it looked very dated. I mean, the tiles were kind of cracked, and, you could tell there was some age to it. And sure enough, I went to the Lincoln Center Library and pulled up the blueprints for the baths, and I found that where I found the disco ball was actually where the stage area was.
Oh my goodness.
So I go back, and here's, I feel bad saying it, but I had to find a way to get the disco ball out of there. So I said, "Hi, I'm here doing a research project. I called about the disco ball." And it was just some guy working at a parking garage. I mean, he had no idea what I was talking about. And he said, "The what?" And I said, "The disco ball. I'm here to grab the disco ball." And he just said, "Yeah, sure, fine. Go get it." So I went down, and I brought the wire cutters, and I took the disco ball. And
I brought the wire cutters.
I brought the wire cutters, and I took the disco ball because I knew that if I didn't, it would be gone forever.
Oh yeah.
So as I'm carrying it home, because it was so old, a disco ball is actually a styrofoam ball covered in mirrored tiles. So the styrofoam started breaking, and the ball
Oh.
started falling apart on the street. So I'm on the street picking up all of these mirrored tiles, which was probably the least weird thing on the street that day, but I felt ridiculous. And I kept the mirrored tiles in a bag. So then a few years later, I was telling the story to somebody, and they said, you should tell this story to Gary. And I said, "Who's Gary?" And they said, "It's Barry Manilow's husband. He would love this story." So they put me in touch with Gary, and I told him this story, and I said, "I have these, these parts from this disco ball. If Barry wants them, they're his." And he said, "Why don't you?" This was last summer when Barry was here doing the Barry Manilow on Broadway. I think he came like for 6 weeks to do a concert. And his husband said, "Why don't you come and tell Barry the story and give them to Barry in person?" Can you believe that?
Amazing. And did you give them to him?
I did. And he asked if it was okay to give some of them to Bet. And I said, "Absolutely. Of course, I'm not going to say no to that." And he loved the story. And, I could tell, I saw him look at them, and I could tell this is going to be something he really enjoys having. And I'm glad that I got them to him.
Oh,
How
wow.
Cool. I kept some for myself, though.
I was just going to ask you, did you keep a couple of tiles?
Oh, yeah.
Just to have.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's what I love about you, is that you see the New York underneath the current New York.
Oh, I love that. I feel like you're like that too, right?
I love New York, and I hate New York at the same time. Like, to me, Berlin feels more like New York to me than New York does.
You know what? I've actually heard that before.
I feel a lot more comfortable in Berlin. And New York, I have to really fight the feeling in New York that I'm not good enough and doing enough. And what the pandemic has done for me is given myself a little bit of a break from that. Like every day in New York, especially if I'm in Midtown, I had a sublet once in Midtown, and it was the worst thing ever, because every day I was like, "Why aren't you at an audition? What? Go. Like, and the pace, like, I can wind myself up so much. And what the pandemic has given me is just a little bit of a rest from that.
Yes. And you know what? And that's the thing. Who knows if we would have taken that rest if this didn't happen?
I know I wasn't, because they had just gotten a new agent, and I was really trying to audition as much as I could, plus work, plus take care of a home and, a family. So going back into the performing world is amazing. But after this, I know, like, one step at a time. I can only do so much in one day. But still, New York winds me up like that. It's like a habit trail.
It does. And there's so many ways you can try to block that out, or to, ignore that and try to carry on. But I think it's just a natural component, because it's not necessarily coming from other people. I mean, there are certainly other people that I think spark that, that exhaustion in you, but the city itself can do that to you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the noise, constant noise, and you can get more run down than you even realize you are.
Yeah. But I will say this, I do play a game with myself where I have to find one brand new thing. Every time I'm in the city, I have to say, okay, you have to find something that's brand new to you. And I have been in New York for 30 years and I still every single
I
day
was
I
gonna
can find
ask you,
something
30
new.
years. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
30. Mm-hmm.
that's
31
amazing.
actually. 31 now.
That's amazing.
I know. Uh and that's a thing too, is that
Because listeners need to know that for every 1 year in New York, it's about 2 years of life anywhere else.
oh, I
So
agree.
you
Oh, for
really lived
sure.
in New York for like 60 years.
Oh God. Oh my goodness. But I live outside the city now, about an hour north of Manhattan, and I do enjoy just having just a little bit of space from the island itself. I
Yeah,
go there for work, I go there to see friends when I can, to go to the theater, but I do enjoy just having like a place away from the city.
oh, absolutely. I mean, on a much smaller scale, I feel that way just living uptown. I love being uptown.
Where do you
I
live
uh,
now?
I live right above the Apollo Theater. I live a block
Fantastic.
away from the Apollo Theater, so up on 125th. And when I don't have to be in Midtown, I'm here. I love
Good.
being uptown just for that same reason. It's nice to feel like you're a little bit outside of it so you can decompress and clear your brain. And
Are you excited though for the pandemic to lift and people to start? I mean, I'm hoping that Broadway shows open back up, but here's my suggestion is I think that doing theater, like more outdoor theater and doing, I don't want to say a tour, but maybe a show that has several different venues. I guess that would be a tour, but you know what I'm saying. Like
yeah, yeah,
not stuck in one theater for a year or so. Like I'm really
yes,
thinking in my brain, I'm trying to design a theater with a space that opens up.
yes.
So if the weather's bad, you can go indoors, but then what about a beautiful summer night? Wouldn't it be lovely to perform outside?
Exactly. And I think, we know that, I mean, humans have been performing since the age of time. I mean, the records go back thousands of years. So we know that theater is going to keep going. And I think that it is going to augment. I hope that it does for those reasons you just said, open air venues and all of that. And I think that theater is, the environment that we see theater in can be so effective to your overall, the overall impact that the night is having on you, that I think we'll see some really exciting stuff and some great, not just shows, but I think the nights will become experiences because people will be trying to reinvent and find creative ways to safely put something on. And I don't
Yeah.
think that that's going to be in one small theater constantly every day.
I like did you ever see Sleep No More?
I did.
I
I
like
did.
interactive things. I like when I like non-traditional interactive things.
I
And
know.
I like when film and live theater merge. You've been doing a
Yes.
lot of demos and filming and reels for a long time.
Yeah.
And you really use New York City as your background. You use the city, and I think you did something on a subway. Didn't you choreograph on a
Oh yeah,
train once?
yeah. I mean, and the real reason for that is it's free. It's free. You
Oh,
don't have to rent the studio space or buy a set, come up with a set or anything like that. The city is your set and is your studio space. So
that's really smart.
yes, but also, I can't underestimate. I love New York just as much as I love show business. So it's that. I mean, I think I would film on the street either way.
What's your favorite neighborhood in the city?
My favorite neighborhood, it will, I think, always be the Upper West Side. And I don't know if that's just because, I was able to move to the city to go to school. That was kind of my path. That was my way of getting myself here. You know, if you can get yourself into a school in the city, then you would have to move to the city to go to the school. So that's how I convinced everybody, and that's how I did it. And that neighborhood for me was the Upper West Side. So I don't know if it's just because that's the neighborhood was the first home,
Yeah.
you know, where you first, that was kind of my introduction to not visiting New York, but living here. And it was a neighborhood that you never make it up to when you're a tourist visiting.
No.
I mean, I think the highest you go is 59th Street, if that.
Right.
You know,
right.
you get to the West 50s and you start getting nervous that you're getting a little far. You're going too far. So that was the West 70s, and I still feel like home. And after I had the 2 years at AMDA in that neighborhood, my first apartment was also in that neighborhood, and I was there for 3 years. So my first 5 years was in the West 70s, and that still feels like home. Like I still go there to run my errands, even though I have places in my own neighborhood that are closer.
I love that. Well, until the pandemic, I used to run my errands in Chinatown. I just love Chinatown.
Like you have your neighborhood, and like, I think I have to drop this off at the dry cleaners, and I choose to go to the one down there just because in my head, that's the dry.
What would you say to someone who is in a small town and is thinking about making a move, following a dream? What would you say to young Jason?
I would say, well, first, I mean, this question I get asked sometimes, but in this particular situation that we're in with COVID and everything, I've actually been thinking a lot about those folks. Very gratefully, I've been thinking, I'm so glad this happened 12 years into my career and not when I was just starting out, because what would have happened, when I didn't know anybody or didn't really have firm roots yet and hadn't really worked and didn't have any credits. That age, when you leave your small town and you move to New York. I mean, Michelle, can you imagine when you did that, if that first pivotal year this happened?
Oh, I've been talking about it with my friends.
Yes.
We did not have the technology that exists now. So if this had gone on, there's no Zoom, there's no communication, there's no FaceTime. But also, when I was that age, I was very impatient and I was very hungry and, go, go, go. So
that's how you did so much so young.
Right. I mean, and I don't know if I would have
so much work in.
Yeah, but I don't know if I would have been patient. Like, I have been pretty patient during this. My patience is running thin the last month.
Yes.
But in the beginning, I was like, hey guys, it's okay. Let's ride this out together. I'm going on Instagram Live and doing a ballet bar, but now I'm like, okay, like enough is enough.
It's nuts. So, I mean, what I would tell them right now is keep your plans. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of folks who were just at that move out of the house and move to New York stage. And they probably now were like, should I still go or should I not go? Like, keep your plans to come. Keep moving, keep training, keep getting here. So that's my answer right now. But for anybody, like whenever I get asked, what would you tell people who are just starting out and trying to find your footing? That's kind of what you were asking, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I would say, I mean, you have to remember to make time for yourself. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it's harder than it sounds. And once you get in the thick of New York between auditions and, getting a survival job and honestly just trying to survive, you're going to run yourself down. And I believe that when you feel run down, your subconscious tells you, oh, well, all I need is a show and that would fix all of this. I wouldn't have to have the day job and I wouldn't be stressed and a show would fix this. I wouldn't be running around working all these jobs and I'd be making money if I just had a show. But you're not going to get one if you're not in the right mindset. And it's not just about being talented and looking good. You have to have yourself in such a good place that you have the brain space that allows you to even retain steps when you go to a dance call. Or if you're an actor and you have a great work session with a director, you're going to have to be mentally available for the director to work with you. And if you're not making time for yourself and you're just letting the survival jobs and the stress and the money and all of that stuff carry you through, you're not going to get the job. because you're going to go in to your audition just not being in that right headspace. So you might feel like there's no time and no money to invest in yourself, but you have to, because that's going to help you get the job. So I
I
just
agree
try to tell young
100%.
people, like, don't feel guilty about, treating yourself to an expensive bubble bath, or, you want to get highlights in your hair, but you're nervous that "Ugh, I can't really spend the money on that right now because rent's going to be due or whatever." Do it, because that's going to make you feel better. And then you're going to be more confident, and you're just going to be, there's going to be more positivity radiating from you when you walk into the room.
I also think that your dream belongs to you. And if you believe in it, something is going to happen. I was telling my students the other day, don't let the energy in the room, don't absorb it. Like some people are not in a good mood sometimes, but don't let that affect
Yeah,
your dream and focus, even just pursuing this. Just like when I was younger and
exactly.
people tried to talk me out of it, I was like, no, like you don't know what you're talking about. So same
Yeah,
thing when
just
you're
stay
actually,
focused, and
yeah.
you were strong-willed. I mean, you had the dream and you protected it, and then you executed it. And there's no coincidence.
So who would you most love to work with right now going forward? Like what's your dream creative team?
Oh gosh. I would have to say I really love Michael Arden. Michael Arden is a new director. I think he was an actor first too. And I think he played Pippin in Pippin at one point, or, he was a singer. He had a career as a singer first, and then recently has transitioned into directing. And his most recent thing, I don't know if you saw it or if anyone listening saw it, but his most recent thing was that Once on This Island
I saw
revival.
that.
That was at
Fantastic.
Circle in the Square, and it was incredible. I mean, I that's not my kind of show at all, and I left a huge fan of Once on This Island, and that was the power of the director, because I happened to be there with the casting director, and he was telling me that, I wasn't too familiar with Once on This Island. He was saying, no, this is all Michael. Like, Michael created this environment and thought it could work in
Mm-hmm.
this space. And so I started looking at some of Michael's other stuff online, and I just think he's just so good and so unique. And what he did? He also did some of those. I'm sure you saw stuff about it. He did some of those shows at Deaf West, like,
Oh
that were
yes.
all done with sign language. I think it was
Oh
Pippin and
yes.
Big River or something. That was all Michael. And then also, further research finding out that that was Michael who wanted to do that. And I haven't crossed paths with him yet, but I admire him so much. And I hope that when things come back, some younger people, and this isn't just because I'm one of these people, but I hope that there's some fresh, young, inventive people that get put into the game, because there's a lot of great. Who used to be great for young people was Hal Prince.
Yes.
He hired Jason Robert Brown, who was a nobody. I mean, I'm not saying he was a nobody, but he hadn't done anything yet. And
Right,
Hal
right.
Prince
I know
had a
what you mean.
pattern. Yes, he had a pattern in his career. Hal Prince was another prolific director who had, he would grab these young people. And if he hadn't done that, we wouldn't have some of the most incredible things that we
Yeah.
have. And I hope that there's a fresh overturn of sorts where just some new blood can get in, like Michael. I think that he gets the right opportunities, could just keep going, keep going, keep going.
Fantastic.
It'll just be interesting to see how everything, because we know it will come back, but how and what will be different remains yet to be seen.
Well, listeners, let it be known here first. This one, Mr. Jason Wise, is going to be a big star, and he's going to be Michael Bennett, who you adore, Thommie Walsh. Oh, we didn't even talk about Thommie.
We didn't even talk about Thommie.
Let's
We have to
very,
talk about Thommie.
yes, because I want to send this to Barbara, his loving sister. Who is Thommie Walsh to you in your life? I'll tell you a quick little Thommie story that I have, but tell the listeners about your connection to the late Thommie Walsh.
Yes, so Thommie Walsh, for those of you who might not know, he originated the role of Bobby in A Chorus Line. And all of those roles, of course, which Michelle, you did. You were Sheila, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were Sheila. Thommie was the original Bobby, and all of those characters were based on the lives of the original cast that played them. So not only did Thommie play Bobby, but also it's very much so based on his actual life. And Thommie Walsh came into my life very early on. As I was talking to you earlier, my mom started letting me choreograph stuff at the studio. I had gone to a competition with a number I had choreographed. I think I was 10 years old, and I had just choreographed a solo to make them laugh. The great Singing in the Rain number that Donald O'Connor does with the doll and the chair. And I did the number of competition. And at that point, Thommie Walsh had started judging the dance competitions, which for all of us is a great gig. I've started judging. It's an amazing job, side hustle, and they come right through New Jersey. But Thommie had started doing that. And after I did the solo, he came out and found me and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Jason." He said, "Who choreographed your solo? Please have them find me after. I want to talk to them." And I said, "I did." And he said, "You've got to be kidding." I said, "No, I choreographed it." And he said, "Where are your parents?" And he found my parents, and he just kind of was our buddy all weekend. And then we all sat down for dinner, and he just said, "Jason, you have to dance. Like, you have to go to New York and have a career as a dancer, but you have to remember you are a choreographer. And when the time is right, you have to give that some attention." And, I had never really had anybody believe in me at that age up to that point. I mean, I was from a small town where no one really knew too much about what Broadway was. So they definitely weren't supporting me per se. So Thommie was kind of that first person who said, "You should do this." And he gave me his address and we wrote letters. He was my pen pal. I mean, every 2 or 3 weeks, the new Thommie Walsh letter would come in the mail. And he was such a unique character. He would stick the address label on sideways, or something would be upside down, or it was just the envelopes were as unique as Thommie was. And
he wrote thank you notes to people after auditions. Did you know that?
Yes, I had heard that to people who didn't get the job.
Yeah. So when you auditioned for him, which I did several times, you had to sign. You didn't have to, but you would put your name and address on a clipboard. And then after the audition, you would get a nice letter. And I think he had glitter inside and written with beautiful markers. Thanking.
Oh, yes. He had this handwriting that was like calligraphy.
Yeah.
He was just one of a kind all the way around. And
I'm sure
I love that you said he had the glitter in the envelope, of course.
Yes, I'm sure you've seen that video where he's choreographing on young dancers, and he's using all this Betty Grable imagery.
Yeah, I put that together.
Oh my God, it is so funny.
I found that over COVID. My mom's studio had all of these old Hochter's dance caravan tapes that he used to put out, where he would set a number on a couple of girls. And I was just watching it, and he had these fabulous comments, like you said, "These are the arms, think Betty Grable." And he was saying this to these 5-year-old girls who had no idea who Betty Grable was.
It's so funny.
There was so many of those moments, and I thought, I have to link all of these moments together. And I did it to send it to Barbara, just like you said. But his sister Barbara has been an amazing. I mean, we don't have Thommie anymore, but we have Barbara. And I was lucky enough this summer when I was upstate, when I was away from the city for COVID, to spend some time with Barbara. And it was the first time we had met ever. And, just to quickly wrap up my Thommie Walsh story so that this one makes sense. We wrote letters, and he guided me and spearheaded me and really was instrumental with helping everyone be okay with me moving to New York for school. And then when I moved here, he passed. So, also that really was hard, because it was like, oh, I'm going to finally get to hang out. We would write in our letters, oh, now we're going to be neighbors. Because the AMDA dorms were on 70th and he lived on 71st. And then we lost him that year, because I moved to New York in 2007, and that was the year that he died. It was devastating.
Oh my God.
But anyway, so I finally got to go anyone who knows Thommie now knows Barbara, because they know that Barbara has really kept Thommie Walsh alive, and she's
Mm-hmm.
kept in touch with all of his friends, and
Yep.
she's been so generous with stories and pictures that we would never have if not for her. And so we connected that way, and then we finally got a chance. She said, well, why don't you come to my house? It was the house I believe Thommie bought for his mother when with his chorus line royalties, or his chorus line
Beautiful.
money. And now Barbara's there, of course, looking after it, and she lives there with her beautiful partner. And we had a great afternoon, and spending time with Barbara was like spending time with Thommie.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
I was so messy when I was with her. We started going through things and watching things, and of course I lost it. I just cried. I cried most of the time I was there. I thought she's never going to invite me back. We had a beautiful afternoon, but the reason it was so emotional is because it was like being with him. I mean, she is such a gift to all of us who knew Thommie. I'm so happy we have Barbara, and
Wonderful.
she does an amazing job of keeping Tommie's spirit alive.
That's a great story.
And
If
you of course know Barbara too.
I do, through the Michael Bennett musicals page, and just from
Yes,
my
exactly.
long association with the show.
And
Um,
I believe I remember you telling me that Thommie wanted you to go out on tour with something or something, right?
Yes. Well, let me first tell you this funny story about Chorus Line, because when I had my first show with Bjork, it was in Atlantic City, and we were rehearsing, and Thommie came down. They had just published that book called On the Line.
On the
So,
line, yep.
yep, Thommie was down for a few days, and we were rehearsing the breakout in the fourth montage. Everybody comes out of a clump, and then we go to stage right, and then in lines we travel backwards across the stage. And he said to me, Michelle, you're not in line, so fix that. Make sure you're in line when you do the breakout. So the next time we ran through the show, then we had a dinner break, and I ran up to him all sweaty, and I was like, Thommie, was I in line that time? And he goes, no. He just looked at me with those eyes and just took a beat. No.
Yeah.
But
I love that.
I did get hired by him. I actually was unknown to me. I was expecting my daughter. So I was on the road with Chicago the Musical, and I was married at the time to my daughter's dad. And unbeknownst to me, was pregnant. We had, right before we went out on another leg of the Chicago tour, Thommie happened to have an audition for Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and it was going to be a national tour with Anne Margaret.
With Anne Margaret.
So I had a Chicago contract that was 9 months or a year or something, and then this was supposed to start like right after that, and I booked it. And I got the offer. And so for the first time in my career, I was going to have two national tours.
From show to show.
Back to back. And for 2 years, 24 months, I was booked. And then...
Which is the best feeling.
Yes.
Then the daughter,
Then I was pregnant. And so I actually called him and said, I'm expecting a baby. And you know what he said to me? Well, do you think you could still do it?
Yeah.
And
if he liked you, and he, wouldn't take no for an answer.
And you know what? I probably should have still done it. You know what I mean? I probably should have just been pregnant in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. But I ended up not doing it. And I regret that, because Anne Margaret is a phenomenal entertainer, and I would have loved to have worked with her. And of course, to have done a show with him. So life is funny, but I will always remember him, and he'll always be alive in our hearts and memories, and his work is everlasting.
Yes. And when I first met Thommie Walsh, I was so young. I didn't know anybody else who was really in show business. So I just kind of thought, I knew Thommie was unique. He always wore these checkered sneakers, and his vocabulary, he would take two words that he loved and mix them together, like eyelash and fabulous would become fabulash. And stuff like that. And but I also just kind of thought maybe that's what they're like in New York, these show people. Maybe they're all a little kooky. And then course I moved here, and it has further proof that there was no one else like him. I mean, he was
Yeah.
one of a kind.
When he would approve of you, it just was, you felt so good. Like when
Yes.
when he thought you were good, you were like, oh, okay.
Yes,
I
he was
must I
very
must have
difficult
something.
on me. He was
Oh,
hard. I mean, it wasn't, he was, I was just, he just kind of really told me to focus. I remember once I was doing a number, so this is further into my relationship with Thommie Walsh. It was, we had been writing letters now for 12 years, and now I'm at that age where I'm about to move to New York, but it's kind of my last year as the kid, quote unquote kid. And I brought a duet to New York to a competition he was going to be at, and something happened where he couldn't be there until the day after, so he missed it. So he said, "Can you please watch it? Even though you missed it, can we do it for you, like in another ballroom in a corner somewhere? We kind of put it together, excited to show you, and we're just so sad that you missed it." And he said, yes, of course, being the nice guy he was. He took his free time, went to the corner, and we run the duet. And then because this was his free time, after we finished, I said, "Thank you so much for your time. Thank you." And I started grabbing my bag, just kind of, ushering my parents back out. Like, we got to do it for him. Let's let him have his time back. And he ripped me a new one. I mean, he said, "You're
wow.
standing here with a 2-time Tony Award winner and you're rushing out of the room. I've taken my time to watch your duet." He said, "I'm worried about you, that you're going to go too quick, that you're too fast." He said, "You need to, linger after the audition and wait, be the last one to grab your dance bag," and just really let me have it. And there was several moments like that where he laid it down. But then when he approved of you, it meant that much more because it was genuine. Like, he
Yeah, but he
wouldn't
laid it
throw.
down because he wanted you to know. And
Yes, exactly. And I'm still, here we are all these years later, and I can promise you, I am the last one out of the room. Oh, I mean, it's just, like you were saying, the approval. I mean, it's just his approval. It really meant something because you knew it was authentic and it was genuine, and it was Thommie Walsh.
and I don't know, you do some teaching, and there's a movement lately about, oh, dance teachers are too harsh and too mean. We need a kinder, softer. Well, here's
Yeah.
my opinion. Those old school people like Bjork, like Thommie, they told you how it was because guess what? Time is money, and they wanted you to know it right away, because my favorite expression is pull up and get it together. And
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
they meant by when they tell you these things. It's not that they don't like you, it's that they do like you, and they want you to be the best you can be. And sometimes you need a talking to, like, it's okay, it's not going to
Oh,
break
yeah.
you.
Oh, yeah. No, and it's funny, like the teachers that I owe a thank you card to are the teachers that I thought hated me. And then I just realized once I started, working in the real world, oh, they were the ones who actually thought I had what it takes and wanted to make sure I didn't screw it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, people might know, these are our own personal situations and stuff, but the broader audience might know nothing from a chorus line, the Diana Morales song. And so many times, I don't know if I'm right on this or not, but so many times I've thought from my personal experience, oh, she must have been, in his eyes, the most talented one in the class. And that's why he was so hard on her.
I love that perspective. Yeah.
Maybe, maybe you were real, which was good. I mean, I still hear your voice
You
sometimes, but
do.
yes, and it wasn't that you were difficult. You didn't treat us like students. You treated us like we were already working together,
Oh, that's
which was
good.
amazing. There wasn't that teacher student, kind of hierarchy or ego. It was, you would lay it down like you were, with us and wanted us to get the job, and it was, you were invaluable.
Well,
Michelle, it was
Jason,
so
thank
good
you.
talking to you.
Thank you for
Hopefully,
your time.
hopefully we get to do something soon together.
And how about a Pippin? How about I can still do Fastrada. I'm still in that age bracket.
100%. You are Fastrada. All right. I love you.
The Showgirl Tip of the Day podcast has original music composed by Joshua Holloway. Find him on YouTube, Joshua Holloway Music. This podcast is written by Michelle Bruckner and edited by Michelle Bruckner and Joshua Holloway. Find me on Instagram, Showgirl Tip of Day. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next week with a new episode.